What's up, guys? So today we're back with another tier list, and in this tier list, it's basically Plants vs Zombies 1 plants in Plants vs Zombies 2. Now these are the new textures with Plants vs Zombies 2, but these are all plants in Plants vs Zombies 1. I made sure to include like every plant that I could possibly find, and these are all of them. I don't know if I missed any, but I don't think I did. But let me know in the comments if I missed any. Also, some of the textures are a little inconsistent, so yeah. Um, but basically, we've got 5 categories, and yeah, we'll get started. So the blower, I mean, if there's any plant that broke out in Plants vs Zombies 2, it would be the blower. It's become one of my favorites, blowing away like every flying zombie and imps throwing from gargantuars and even imps throwing from the sky. And it's just a lifesaver now. It was okay in Plants vs Zombies 1. It wasn't that great because it was a little expensive, but in Plants vs Zombies 2, lifesaver. Cabbage Pult, uh, I feel like people will hate me for this, but I say declined because in Plants vs. Zombies 1, it was okay. It didn't really. It did definitely get worse in Plants vs. Zombies 2 due to all the plants we have, but it wasn't ever like great to begin with. I don't know. I feel like it's not as bad as people are making it out to be. Cactus, I would say stay around the same. Sure, its uses have changed, but it's not like the plant I would use over anything else. Uh, Cherry Bomb also stayed the same. It's useful in Plants vs Zombies 1, and it's just about the same in Plants vs Zombies 2. So I don't really think there's really any changes here. Chomper, on the other hand, holy cow, how it's fallen. I mean, Chomper isn't too great of a plant, but geez, it is much worse. Actually, it's a little worse because it can still eat zombies whole. Um, it's just that it's premium, and it's just disappointing that it's a premium plant because it's not that great for a premium plant. Um, Fume Shroom, I would say declined. Fume Shroom, it's not bad in Plants vs Zombies 2. Like it can be a safe option, but it wasn't as useful as it was in Plants vs Zombies 1. Garlic, on the other hand, oh boy, they kind of killed Garlic with this game. With Plants vs Zombies 1, Garlic was one of the most useful plants because it can just protect. It feels like something you would be necessary to protect like your plants from having to be eaten. You could just send zombies in the other lane. But now we've got so many other plants that make zombies go in other lanes, and this pretty much this plant only gives like makes 4 zombies go in the other lane. It's just disappointing. Whereas Gravebuster has improved. It's no longer like 75 sun like it used to be, and it feels just right. It feels like it should have been 0 sun from the beginning. Hypno Shroom stayed about the same. Not much has changed really. Um, Imitator has definitely improved, but that's probably because there's more plants you can imitate. And you can imitate any plant now, except for like very special plants. But you get what I mean. It's improved. Jalapeno, yeah, would say stayed about the same. It sucks that it's a premium plant once again, but it really hasn't gotten any better or worse. Uh, Kernel pult improved easily. You can butter. It feels like you can just butter stuff and stall stuff a lot more. You could do this in Plants vs Zombies 1, but it was mostly a stalling plant. But in this time around, you can actually use it to get rid of like eagle zombies, which is great. Lily pad, I mean, it's just stayed around the same. Um, Not much really there. Magnet shroom, once again, stayed around the same. Actually declined because it's only really good in Dark Ages and nowhere else. Whereas Melon Pult, I'm gonna say Melon Pult should be. Yeah, this one's a tricky one because I'm gonna say stayed around the same. For the most part, most of these plants stayed around the same because, um, like they didn't get like so much better in Plants vs Zombies 1, uh, than Plants vs Zombies 1, but they didn't get so much worse. Actually, they might. Actually, I was thinking. I'm considering it should be like in between declined and stayed the same, because it really feels like it's gone down a little bit, but not too much. Pea shooter, obviously no question. Pea shooter is definitely declined. It wasn't too great in Plants vs Zombies 1, but in Plants vs Zombies 2, it is just non-existent. Potato mine improved. Uh, Definitely, because like you can plant food it now. And I do consider the plant food effect for all of these. Puff shroom declined, even though its plant food effect is great, and keeps it alive. I mean, the reason why it's here is not because it's a bad plant at all. In fact, it's a really good plant. It's just that in Plants vs. Zombies 1, it was so broken. It was so busted that, like, anyone could use it, and it was just so handy because it costed no sun, and it would just be on the board forever. So you could just, like, save it and stall zombies without having to do anything. Now, you know, now these puff shrooms don't last forever, but they do have its use. They do have its uses. They're still useful. It's just that they're not as busted as they once were in Plants vs. Zombies 1. Pumpkin, I'd actually say declined. Not because it's a bad plant. It's just that there are so many good plants now. Like, it's still a good plant. It's just that there are so many good plants that, like, it kind of felt like, not as necessary. The plants just got stronger. You know, back then in Plants vs. Zombies 1, the plants were a lot weaker, and there weren't that many of them, so pumpkin was a necessity. So it's still very good. It's just not as necessity as it once was. Maybe if the zombies were leveled up in like Penny's Pursuit or something, but that's really about it. Repeater. I'm gonna say I don't know what I think about Repeater. I feel like stayed around the same. Honestly, not much. Didn't get so much better in Plants vs Zombies 2 than it did in than it was in Plants vs Zombies 1. Snow Pea Now, if we were talking about before the buff was made, it would be here, but it's still declined because there are just so many other good plants now. Uh, yeah, it's declined, and the fact that it's also premium kind of hurts. Uh, Spike Rock definitely broke out in Plants vs Zombies 1. It was just okay at best, sometimes even bad. Um, and like it was hard to use because there were so few zombies that and there were just like only so many zombies that it's like why would you even use a spike rock, especially since you had to place it over a spike weed. uh why would you use that over something else? um but now in Plants vs Zombies 2, there are a lot more zombies, there are a lot more dangerous zombies, and you can rely on spike rock a lot more. So it really feels like it broke out just like Blover. Spikeweed improved. Um, Same reason. It got better because there were just more zombies that felt like you needed to use it for. Um, Split P, I'm going to say declined. Like, unless you're doing like a challenge or something, what would you use it for? You've got so many, like you've got Bonk Choi now, you've got Celery Stalker, you've got all plants that seem to go to target stuff backwards. That Split P just doesn't make sense. Uh, and and also, there aren't any digger zombies like there used to be, so there really isn't. It's definitely not down here, but it might have just declined a bunch. Um, yeah, squash. Oh boy. Yep, squash. Not only is it a premium plant, but now there are so many single use and instants that do its same task. Like it's good if you have the plant. Um, but there are just so many single use and instance now that it really feels like if you were a free to play player, oh yeah, you could just use Lava Glava and um, Grimrose. Uh, Obviously, it doesn't replace Grimrose because you can only use one Grimrose. But and also Primal Potato Mine, like it really feels like Squash has kind of lost its amazingness that it did in Plants vs Zombies 1. Like it just doesn't really feel like a great plant. It doesn't feel like a premium plant. I don't think it should have been. Just like Snow Pea. And in fact, I think we should put Snow Pea down here because it should have never been a premium plant, and it's just not. It's just disappointing for a Plants vs Zombies 2 plant. Starfruit, I would say it stayed around the same. Not really anything special, but not anything too great either. Sunflower, yikes. Sunflower, it's still usable. It's just that it feels so slow, and there are just so many sun options now. And like it's just so disappointing. Speaking of one of those sun options, uh, Sunshroom broke out. It was always good, but it got so much better in Plants vs. Zombies 2 than it did in Plants vs. Zombies 1 because it cost less and eventually would generate more sun. So it was like, why would you even need this sunflower anyway? Um, so for tall nut, I would say stay around the same. Didn't get too much better. Didn't get so much worse either. And then I would say walnut is around the same mark. It was simply as good as it was in Plants vs Zombies 1. Um Tangle kelp, I would say um I would say it improved because um in Plants vs Zombies 1, it was just as good in Plants vs Zombies 1 because like it did its job. It just simply pull zombies underwater. In Plants vs Zombies 2, now that there are stronger zombies, that is even more handy. So I would say, yeah, Tangle Kelp definitely improved. Declined, I mean, come on. Like, 3 Peter is so expensive, and it used to be okay in Plants vs. Zombies 1. Actually, it declined, but not declined drastically. Sunflower, Twin Sunflower improved, uh, for sure, because you don't have to place it over a sunflower anymore, and it feels just right. And Melon Pult, obviously, Winter Melon, absolutely improved, hands down. Um, since you don't need a melon pult anymore. So yeah, here we go. These are all the Plants vs Zombies 1 plants in Plants vs Zombies 2, how they improved or declined. Um, for the most part, these plants stayed around the same. They didn't incline or decline too much. It was mainly only the plants that got better because there were simply more threatening zombies or more zombies that made that plant useful, while the plants that declined a bunch were simply just outclassed because of the fact that they were either premium or they were disadvantaged in a number of ways. Um, that doesn't mean you can't use any of these plants. It just means that they aren't as good as they were in Plants vs Zombies 1. So yeah, that's basically it, guys. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.